Welcome to this edition of the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling Podcast. Today, our special guest is Mary Jones. We met Mary, our entire team did last year when we did our give back with the Indiana FFA, Indiana FFA, geez, my peas, I'm going to butcher this, retreat center where the state officers live. So I hate identifying anybody from their past. I don't do that. But so we met when you were the Northern Region Vice President for the state of Indiana for last year. So go ahead and introduce yourself and
Yeah, so Mary Jones, I graduated from Adams Central High School, and then I'm now at St. Francis in Fort Wayne after my gap year serving as a state officer, and I am double majoring in communications and then marketing, and I'm on the golf team there.
Okay. So just so people understand, like when these young adults, they become, when you get elected as an Indiana State FFA officer, like you give a year of your service. Like you can't be working, you can't be going to college. So that's why she calls that, her gap year. So when we did that as part of the give back, my request was I wanted to work with the officer team. I wanted my team to work with them and just get to know the officer team. And of course, my girls, I never realized how like little girls look up to, older women. That makes you sound like you're 50, but little girls look up to older females, and like, it's just, that's what girls do. So my girls really attached to you and Jenna, I believe. Mm-hmm. So they were excited that, you were coming in today. So I guess talk a little bit about your year of service with the NEFFA, kind of what you learned, and what kind of doors that open, and then also like what you're studying communication marketing. What's your end goal there? I mean, you going to go professional golfing or what?
That may be a big dream for farther down the line. My dad jokes he wants to be my caddy someday, but we'll see if we ever get to that point. But yeah, my year of service as a state officer, I was elected in June of 2022, and then we take a gap year until June of 23. So basically for that whole time, I was kind of on my own for the first time, but I was also living with my 6 teammates, and that was probably one of the best experiences of my life. A lot of people questioned, why would you take a gap year? That kind of just seems like a waste of time because you need to get to college, you're on a golf scholarship, you need to just go and start your life. And I would argue that was the point where I really got a really good start for my career, for me personally, and it was such a fantastic experience that I knew it would be really good for me going into it, but I think now that it's over with, I'm looking back on just how truly wonderful of an experience it was. We got to spend so much time meeting FFA members. There's 14,000 members currently in Indiana, and we got to interact with almost all of them that we could. It was so fun holding conferences and different workshops for them, and then we traveled to a lot of the businesses that sponsor things for Indiana FFA, got to meet with you guys for one, and I think those were probably my favorite parts of the year, besides then our Indiana FFA state convention that we wrapped up with. Yeah. So it was a lot of experiences with FFA members and with sponsors, and those were always my favorite moments. I loved living with my team. That's something I still miss a lot. I turn to them every once in a while and realize they're not right beside me anymore, but I think those were probably my favorite experiences of the year.
Well, one thing that I really enjoyed is I feel like as a culture, all we do is complain about these young kids. They're lazy. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. But it's, for me as a business owner, it's exciting, and it gives me joy and kind of gives me hope that when I get to go spend time with 6 or 7 just 18-year-olds that are way more mature than I ever was at that age. And like even some of my team was like, holy cow, that didn't really understand what FFA was. They're like, they do what? Like they give a year. They're like, when I was 18, like I would never have done that. I was like, yeah, I know. And but like you said, it really sets you up for success. And I'm not anti-college. It's not that. It's just that we put so much emphasis that you have to go to college. And it's not a bad thing, but also building relationships, knowing how to work, knowing how to communicate. you just can't go to college and to get a degree and then walk out and demand $150,000 a year. Like, it's just
college alone can't teach you that either.
Right. So with your golf scholarship, there was no problem of like putting that on pause for a year or anything?
They were fantastic with it. I was really nervous when I found out that I got it. It was one of those things like, oh my gosh, this is great. Wait a minute, what if I run for state office?
Right.
And so I told my coach about it up front. I said, I am wanting to run for this year-long internship. Is this going to be something that would hinder you from signing me? Because if I get the opportunity to do it, I'll be taking a gap year.
Right.
I'm not going to choose, as much as I love golf, this internship means more. And he was like, you know what? I don't know what FFA is. I don't know what you're doing. But if you're that passionate about it and you want to do it, I'm going to support you and we'll be waiting for you.
Okay.
And St. Francis did the same. I'm on a full scholarship called the Pay It Forward Scholarship.
Awesome.
For some work that I did with a friend of mine for AEDs and things like that. And they said the same thing. They were like, we're going to hold it. We're going to hold your golf scholarship, your full tuition, whatever you need. Have fun. We'll be waiting for you.
Man, that's exciting, because another thing that I get like near and dear is Dave Ramsey, generosity, how you run your business, all that kind of things. And we're always we actually did a podcast with a local girl that was in FFA that she's going to school debt-free, and you know, like literally, like I'm going to be intentional and do another interview with her when she's done, because we just talked, you know, and she was getting this scholarship, that scholarship. So kudos, because that really sets you up with success of not starting $100,000, $200,000 in the hole for a certificate, you know.
And I feel like I can enjoy my college experience now, not worrying about the debt that's going to come with it, especially going to a small private university. It's something that it's not cheap. And so being able to just explore the things that they have for me there and getting to experience that without the worry of debt is something that I didn't realize how refreshing that would be.
Oh, yeah.
It's been awesome.
So one thing you said off camera, and whenever we do these podcasts, I'm really bad. Like, I don't really go in with an agenda. Like, you know, we try to do some that's like business focused, and then we try to do some like outside community focused things. And so one thing that you said before, your grandpa, used to run a construction crew. And then you just tell me right before we start recording that he lost his hand in a corn picker when he was 17? 17. Mm-hmm. And then you just said that he built a house faster than a lot of people. You know, so it just kind of rolls into life. There's always challenges, like, you know, and you can look at it as a blessing or as a curse. So I guess what has maybe your grandpa taught you, seeing, you know, how he faced adversity, I guess is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I did pretty much a whole story on this. Each state officer writes for the prairie farmer. Okay. And so my whole story or focus for that was my grandpa and his story. He was working third shift and was extremely tired, but he came back and his dad said, hey, you need to get down, help the neighbors, get out in the fields. And he was running on maybe an hour of sleep at that point. He was on his brand new job. He was not ready for third shift. And he was like, okay, fine, I'll go do it. And he got out there and things kept getting stuck. And he goes, you know what? I'm sick of shutting it off, so I'm going to punch it through. And that exact moment, it pulled his arm in, cut off his hand just right above the wrist. It shattered the watch he was wearing. They found it in the field, stopped at the exact time with his blood still in the cracks of it. My grandma still has it to this day. And he wrapped it up in his own shirt, took that off, wrapped it up, drove up the bumpy field, and reached the closest house. But it was an Amish house, so they didn't have any phones or any way to get him there. So he turned the tractor back on, drove himself down the road another couple miles where a crew was. They took him into the hospital, and he even told my grandma, if you don't want to marry me, it's okay. They were just freshly engaged because I only have the one hand now. I can't do much. And he was right-handed. So learning completely, he goes, if you don't want to marry me, that's okay. And she just goes, nope, I'm going to do it. I love you no matter what. And they've been married for over 50 years now, and it's been so cool watching him because he's the type of guy that I don't think I've heard him complain once in 19 years about his situation, about anything, about not being able to do something. He, like I said, he does more with one hand than most guys I know could do with two. And he's not let it stop him.
Well, and I mean, like I said, we all have bad days. We all have adversity. And there's days that I want to complain. And then I remember that I've got a really good friend that's got young kids around my age and a few years older. And he's he's got stage 4 cancer right now. So it's like, okay, my worst day, like, you know, right now I have my health, you know, I'm not fighting that, you know. And that's a testament to your grandma, you know, the kind of person that she is. That's also a testament to your grandpa that at 17 he was working full time. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and another thing is like, you know, like I said, like, and I'll have to read that article. So if you have a link of that, send that over to me, because that's, like I said, I like picking stuff up like that, because then, like, because a lot of our podcasts, we usually talk more like, what have you overcome? It's just because people need to hear the stories, because they see the success. Like, I literally got off the phone last night with a guy that is a construction teacher at a local high school over in Shelby County, Blue River building something. Mm-hmm. Anyways, like, he called me to ask, like, they need some help on a couple things. And I was like, absolutely. And then he texted me back and he said, you must be a Christian because I see that you're on a mission. And I was like, awesome. Like, I really want, like, who I am and how I act for people to be like, there's something different, you know, about that person. So that's a lot of fun. So one thing that I want to talk about is your upcoming trip to, and now that I'm on camera, I'll just let you talk about it.
Yeah. So
it's in January, right?
It is in January.
I remember that part. I'll let you talk.
We leave January 3rd for Australia. I was picked as one of, I think there's going to be 70 total with staff and everybody going on the trip, of state officers from around the country. And we are traveling to explore Australian agriculture and kind of what it's like out of the country. And it's ILSSO stands for the International Leadership Seminar for State Officers. So I got to go now that I'm out of my year of service. It's just so busy during that time, during our year, that Indiana typically does it the year after. And so I'm super excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're there for 12 days. So
how many kids, or you're not kids anymore, but how many former FFA state officers?
I think there's just over 50.
Okay.
50 or 60 or so, because then we have quite a few staff members from nationals coming too.
So does other states, do they do a similar like system like Indiana, where you have to be, you know, on site in a certain area and can't be in college and that kind of stuff, or not?
We are one of the only states who does that.
Okay.
We are actually one of only 3 states who lives together. Okay. Us, California, and Colorado. Okay. Illinois does kind of part-time in a hotel, but we're very few. It's very rare. And we're one of only a very small handful that does a gap year. So we are much more hands-on and focused within the entire year of our service. Mm-hmm. For other states, you can be a high school senior, and it's much like how we would fashion our district officers, our section directors, or things like that. And others, you are a freshman or sophomore in college. It kind of just depends, but ours is very unique in Indiana to do the gap year and stuff.
And like I said, that's a big testament to you guys to do that. So, you know, tell a little bit of your background, where your dad was your dad was your FFA, geez, my peas, advisor. Yep. I'm losing it today. Yeah. And just, you know, talk about growing up, because I think I even saw a picture of like you as 4 or 5 year old at state convention, like trying to catch up with your dad or holding your dad's hand or something. So I guess kind of talk about, because like, you know, for me, like the FFA, there's so much leadership that a lot of people just think it's all about farming and all about agriculture, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's so much bigger than that. And like, I'm a podcast junkie, and there's been a couple of really highly successful people that on these podcasts, they're like, hey, what do you contribute this to? They're like, oh, my day's in FFA. And I'm like, holy cow, like, he used to judge livestock like me. It's something you can find in common with so many random people that you don't realize it, but it's almost like once you notice it, you can't almost unsee the connections with an FFA. Absolutely. But yeah, no, I grew up, my dad is my FFA advisor. This is his 26th year teaching. I may be a little off on that number, but he has been at Adams Central for 25 of that. Okay. And so it's been super fun. I didn't grow up on the farm. We've actually always lived in town, but my mom's
my mom's family grew up farming, and then my dad showed pigs and rabbits and some other things like that in high school. But he wanted to do ag engineering, didn't want to do ag ed. His advisor convinced him to switch, and it was so fun growing up around it because I got drug along to all of the activities. I was born in the end of May, and my dad had to leave within 2 weeks to go take kids to state convention in June. So that was my mom's first experience of FFA in our world, and it's been so fun to look at pictures. My first trip to the FFA Center, where I lived for a year, was when I was just under a year old.
Oh, wow.
And so it's crazy to see the full circle moment in that picture that I've been traveling along to these events and witnessing all of it. Like you said, I posted a picture right before state convention of one of my first ones where I really remember things kind of that were going on, and I think I was 5 or 6, and it's me tagging along with all of his students that became my siblings. I was an only child, so they were the closest thing I had to siblings. It was truly the best experience growing up around it, because then it pushed me to really have a passion and a love for it.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that is like, I equate that to like our kids being in the business. Like, they're here today, it's Friday, they're out of school, it's just, you learn so much more. And it's just, I always say this, the one thing the Amish community does well is they're outside of the union. They're really the only people that's really doing like apprenticeship, where, the kids are
coming with you,
coming to work. And I mean, I get it. My dad, I was cheap. I was free labor, let's be honest, and I know some people give the Amish a bad rap of like, oh, they're just using that, 14-year-old labor. But I mean, how respectful them kids are, and how responsible, and how many of them go into business to create jobs and to provide a service. Like, it's that hands-on experience. It's seeing that, like, and there's days that it's a stress. So the kids are going nuts. They're being loud when I'm trying to shoot a podcast or whatever that looks like. But it's like, I know they're going to grow up, and, if they're not in the construction business, I don't care. I really don't. But I know they're going to look back and be like, them were some cool times with my dad and my mom, like, being around the business. I mean, there's some Saturdays they wake up, they're like, Dad, we going to the office today? Or we'll drive by on a Sunday and they'll be like, why is Adam not here, Dad? Well, it's Sunday. Adam's off on Sundays, So
I grew a new appreciation for my dad, and my mom traveled so much as the chaperone for everything. So it really made me grow an appreciation for all that they did and his work as an advisor, because I got to see it firsthand for so many years.
Well, and the advisors, and I've said this before, like, they don't get paid enough. Like, the amount of hours that they put in, the amount of hours that Mr. Worm has poured into thousands of kids in Rushville, your dad's no different. I understand that. And, like, and the spouse has to be as committed as the actual advisor, because there's a lot of times that either she has to go with them on a trip, or she has to be willing to them being gone for 3 or 4 days and not have your mom not have her husband around, And I mean, it's great that she could go with them, you could tag along, and stuff like that. So what, on your trip to Australia, like, what is how many days, and then what is the end goal of that?
Yeah, so we are gone for 12 days. It's the 3rd through the 15th of January, and we really get to just experience everything about Australia. We get to do a few of the big tourist spots while we're there, but a big part of it is we're going out to different farms that are there, different businesses that contribute to the ag industry there, and just kind of exploring how things there operate differently than the U.S. and getting to see that.
So have you done much studying on that? Like, do you know what to expect?
We've done a little bit. We have some coursework that we do before we go, kind of just online, different things to learn about it. We aren't super far right now. A lot of it is just kind of learning about the overall culture. Okay. There are some of the slang terms, things to say and not to say, or things like that. And that's kind of where we're at now, but I know at the end of that, we'll definitely get into more.
So what have you learned so far about their culture?
I don't remember some of them off the top of my head, but we do learn some of their like slang terms that are a lot different than some of the ones that we would say here. So one of the ones they said, don't ever joke about the Barbie, like throwing shrimp on the Barbie or something like that. Because it's a joke to us about Australians, but It's something that they don't typically enjoy hearing. So the little things like that we connect with Australia, but they were like, yeah, probably don't just say that to somebody that you meet while you're there.
Kind of like tea in England.
Yep.
And I don't know my history that well. I was
Oh, yeah.
hey, I think I know this one. No, that's awesome. And like, we've talked about your Australia trip, and it's so cool because we, me and my wife, me and Emily, we've been on. I've been to Haiti twice on mission trips, and I know it's not a mission trip, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, I've been there twice. Emily was there once, and just that experience with that group of people, like there'll be a connection. I just had a group of good friends that went to Africa for a mission trip, and like I was talking to a couple of them, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like the connection I made with the other guys there. I'm like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." So that's fun. Like, what's your ideal job? Like, you know, you're studying marketing, and you said communication, right?
Yep.
Like, you know, and it's cool that you're not going to Purdue, and I'm not against Purdue, but it's just like a lot of times it's like, being an Indiana State FFA officer, go to Purdue. Like, you know.
5 of the 7 of us went to Purdue.
Right.
So it was funny. When somebody would ask, I would be like, well, I'm the oddball. I'm not going to Purdue. That's where I planned on going for most of high school. But I'm glad the plans kind of switched because studying communications and marketing, my end goal is hopefully either something in news as a reporter or an anchor, or somewhere working in agribusiness in marketing. So I've done an internship with Co-Alliance for a few weeks in their marketing department and some different things like that. So I'm excited to get to see, having a double major, I get to see both of those.
Right.
And then I'll be able to kind of pick a little bit more. But right now, those are kind of the 2 options that I'm between.
So have you done any internship, anything with like news anchoring or communication?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's one of my goals. I set the goal before I started college to do an internship every summer of college. And so hopefully that's one of the ones I'll end up doing. But right now I'm just kind of focusing on the marketing side and seeing what I can maybe line up for this summer.
No, that's cool. What do you have for up closer to home for like news and stuff like that?
There's Wayne 15, ABC 21 are 2 of the big stations in our area.
Them are out of Fort Wayne?
Yep.
How far is that from you?
It's about 35, 40 minutes north.
Okay.
Yep. But it's only like 2 minutes from campus.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Just because, like, I mean, I knew somebody that wanted to get into TV years ago, and I've just had the conversation, and they said, yeah, that you got to start at a smaller market, and then belong before you ever get on, you know, Wish TV in Indianapolis or whatever like that. So that's cool, because that's another thing. Like, I love seeing FFA kids like taking their work ethic and their drive out to, is it news anchoring or whatever? You know what I mean? It's just there's nothing wrong with going back into ag. I get that, but it's cool. Like I said, to step back and watch the FFA kids succeed and have success. So absolutely. So golfing. You know, is that just a passion you've always had? How'd you get into golfing?
I didn't start golfing until my freshman year of high school. It was one of those things. I played some other sports throughout middle school. Thought I was going to do all of these different ones, and I was like, you know what? I just don't love them. I enjoy them. I do them with my friends, but I want to do something a little different. So then it was down between golf and tennis. And my dad said, well, I don't know anything about tennis. I've golfed a few times. We can figure that one out. So why don't you try that? And I did. I picked up clubs a week before my first practice. I used them out for the second time at our first practice. And we had our first 18-hole invitational 2 days later. Safe to say that tournament did not go very well. I look back at that scorecard. I still have every scorecard from every match of high school and college so far. And looking at some of them, it's difficult to look at some of them. Others I'm proud to look at, but it's been an experience of growing. I never expected to really love golf that much, let alone to play in college, but it's just become something that I get to do with my dad that's not FFA sometimes, and it's been fun. My mom and dad and I love to go out and just have some time.
So I'm assuming the scores have gotten better?
A little bit, yeah. Okay. We'll say a little bit. I've gotten there. I think I shot like a 140 my freshman year at sectionals, and my senior year I shot an 81. So definitely cut some strokes off there. But, you know, golf's golf every day. You never know what you're going to get. And
golf is also a game that you need to continue to play, like to stay. Mm-hmm. So did did you struggle keeping playing enough during your year of service?
I'm noticing that a little bit. Taking an entire year, I golfed a couple of my teammates. I drug to the golf course quite a bit.
Right.
Well, I say quite a bit, but it's probably more like 3 to 4 times.
Right.
But for us, with our schedule, that seemed like quite a bit. And so I'm noticing the year off a little bit, especially in some of my scores, and just getting back, I say, into the swing of things. That seems a little ironic, but
right.
It's been super fun to get back into. I think my body's not quite up to the same stamina I was at, but trying to get workouts in and just do things to get back to it.
That's funny because I've golfed 3 times in my life. 2 of them has been in the last year. So yeah, I'm.
It's such a business game. I never realized until I started playing how many businesses use golf as like a huge way to get connections and networking and all that kind of stuff. And it's been so cool to say, oh yeah, well, I can come to your company, like golf outing or anything like that.
I'm absolutely horrible. One was at a concert weekend with a friend, and the other one was at his bachelor party. And yeah, what I struggle with golf is like the same thing with bowling. Like I swear I hit it the exact same way, and one time it goes straight, and then the next time it goes that way, and it's like, nope. I'm just, and I've sponsored more golf teams than I can probably imagine as a business owner and never played in one. Like one time we sponsored one, and it was, there was a group of sheriff deputies that wanted to play, and I was like, I'll just pay for it. They can play. They're like, okay. So they were nice enough to wear our shirts, and it worked out perfect. So I try to get the guys, a few of my guys like to golf. So what else do you have, What other big projects or big things that you're working on? I mean, I know you're really busy with college and with golfing, and you've got this Australia trip. But do you, have anything planned for the spring, the summer, any of that?
Yeah. So I've been working. Kind of the reason I got my full ride scholarship. I worked with the Dylan Williams Forever and All Star Foundation out of Union City.
Okay.
I've worked with them since my sophomore year. End of my sophomore year of high school, and so one of their oldest son, Derek, was a state officer. So we got to know each other through FFA.
Okay.
And so I've been able to work with their family to raise money for AEDs in my town and my community. I think right now we are sitting at a little over $22,000 so far for AEDs. I've gotten I think 6 to 7 placed within my county, and that's been a big one. Then once we kind of started with all of that, then getting the Heart Safe school designations for my high school, and then a few other schools that I met through my year of service as an FFA, kind of stating that they have AEDs present, they do Heart Safe cardiac drills, things like that. And then I've met with somebody else who kind of helps run those designations, and she wants me to get St. Francis as the first college in Indiana. Right now there's 2 high schools, and so we're hoping to get my home high school and then maybe St. Francis.
So tell us a little bit about that foundation.
Yeah, so the Dylan Williams Forever and All-Star Foundation started when Dylan was 8 years old, and he was hit in the head with a baseball and tragically didn't walk off the field. And so his family started the foundation because they said if an AED had been present, there's a possibility that could have been a factor in him maybe walking off the field. And so they've made it their mission to put AEDs in ballparks and community event centers and any place that doesn't have one. So it's been such a joy to work with them that they truly are some of like the most passionate and exciting people to work with. And it's so cool to see that they took something that was a hardship for their family and they've turned it into something that they are hopefully making a difference in other families' lives.
So then one of their other sons was a state officer then?
Yes, their oldest son, Derek, was the state officer in 2020 to 21. And then he was actually our national officer candidate for a few years.
Okay.
And so then they have another daughter, Bree, who's a little bit younger than Dylan was.
Okay. That's awesome. Just because whenever you have that opportunity, like to give back, like there has to be a mission. There has to be something behind that, of just being able to. I mean, it kind of goes back to like, why is Dave Ramsey so passionate about financial responsibility? Like his family went through bankruptcy. He went through bankruptcy. So now he wants to teach and help other people, not have that same problem. So like, I mean, it's, you can tell when people like, some people do stuff like to go through the motions. But then some people like, they have a passion, they have a purpose of like how they want to help to get AEDs wherever. Because I actually know a gentleman here in our local community that he owned a gym and had one, and he had a heart attack, or I don't want to tell the exact story because I don't know the exact story, but practically that AED is what saved his life. And somebody was there that was trained at his own gym. I mean, he owned it, and one of his own employees, team members, saved his life by, and I remember our church got a grant, I believe, years ago, a church we used to attend, and I believe they had an AED, or we had that conversation just because it's one of the things you don't think you need it until you need it.
I have told so many people, one of the favorite things that my parents and I do is before we pass out an AED, we will always pray over it before we take it. And it's always the prayer that it's never used, that it just sits and gets dusty and just sits there. But in the case that it does, giving the other people around peace knowing that it's there. And it was the craziest thing, actually, at our county fair this year. I had placed 2 AEDs on the fairgrounds property. And I never expected to witness that AED getting used this year. A couple of the students within my dad's FFA chapter, couple of his chapter officers, their grandpa. And he didn't make it, but the AED was a big part of getting him at least to the hospital at that point. And so it was so weird to kind of witness something that I had worked at so hard and didn't realize the impact it was going to make. I hadn't had any of my AEDs be used yet. And then to witness it was just crazy, thinking I was able to help put that there.
Right. And see, that's what I love about like FFA students, like the community service, the helping heart of like, once again, AEDs have nothing to do with of ag, but like, your mission, what you've learned, the leadership skills, and FFA also pushes like do community service and do stuff like that. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that, the FFA is just pushed so, there's so many quality things that students are taught, and then you can get a hold of that, and and you're encouraged by your parents, and job well done by your parents for because FFA takes a lot of any FFA parent, job well done, because they make a lot of sacrifice to make sure if it's money, if it's time for you to have that opportunity. So that's fun, and I'll probably have Adam do some kind of link with this about that foundation. So if anybody feels led to donate or anything or wants more information, I have no idea how he's going to do it, but I'm sure he can do it. So as I put him on the spot for that. So and another thing, like, you brought it up, like you pray over it, like talk about your faith a little bit. And like I said earlier, like I don't want my actions to speak louder than my words, because I'll be real honest, I don't like religious people. I've been around plenty of them. I've had religious people try to not pay their bill in my own business. And I'm like,
amen.
we're all sinners, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I don't know, like, if you're going to wear a fish, if you're going to drive a fish on the back of a car, like, drive it right. So talk a little bit about your faith journey, like maybe the FFA state office, however that is.
Yeah, I grew up, my family, my dad's dad is a pastor, and my mom's parents were charter members of the church that they attended for years. So growing up, church every Sunday, every Wednesday, and from all the time I can remember, I was always in a pew, no remember how young I was. And so I'm very, very thankful to have grown up in a family that valued faith and going to church so much. I think that's truly been a huge part of what's made me into the person I am today. And even through high school and kind of growing up, I was trying to think, if I move away for college, where am I going to go to church? What's that going to be like? And especially during state office, I was really nervous because I know a lot of our conferences fall through Sunday mornings and things, and so finding the time to attend church sometimes is just different as a state officer. But I was so thankful. I started attending a cowboy church down there in Trafalgar, and they truly are some of the best people I think I've ever met in my life. It's been such a joy over the last year and a half to really get to know them so much. And then a couple of my teammates and I also attended Fairhaven is another church down there. We went there quite a bit, and so it was an experience that I was nervous about going into state office, but I also had a team. All 7 of us had the same views and values on what we wanted faith to look like. We did a team Bible study together. We prayed together before every meal, before every event, before every session at our state convention. Everything that we did, our teams surrounded ourselves with prayer, and our families did too. And I think that was a huge part of our state officer year that was very unique to our team. Not many teams can say that every person truly valued faith in the same way. So I'm extremely lucky to have gone through that experience with my teammates, knowing that even to this day, we're still praying for each other, miles apart now. We're not in the same house anymore. We're still texting, how can I pray for you this week? How are classes going? Things like that. And I think faith has been a huge part, not only of state office, but now moving into college. I'm able to be closer to home, going to church with my family again. And it's been a huge part of my life, and I'm very thankful for that.
And that's something else as we grow, and as you get older, like the friendships, the people that you can be honest with, especially like as a business owner, like I have to be like strong, and I can't leave. Like it's a struggle because like I want the team to know how freaking hard it is to run a successful small business, but I also don't want to burden them with that at the same time. And I've got a really good friend. He owns a window and door company in Georgia. His name's Brenton. And, like, he is such a man of God. Like, there is just times that it's like, I just call him, like, hey, man. Like, that guy can, like, I can call, like, struggling with something going on, and by the end of it, like I'm like smiling, and I'm like, man, he's right. Like,
I love those people.
be appreciative of your problems. Like there's problems I'm having today that I didn't have 4 years ago, and I'm like, I've got to be thankful for that. But just as you grow, and like I think you even texted me last week and said, hey, is there any way I can pray for you, or I'm praying for you and Emily or something. I was like, that's awesome. Like a 19-year-old thanks to send that, like, and I'm thinking, holy cow, like, when's the last time I've asked Adam how I can pray for him? Like, as a leader, I'm like, I'm failing there, so, I mean, that is something that is so refreshing to hear, that, once again, job well done by parents that all of you kids were raised like that. And, job well done for you guys for digging in, because that's not the norm to have a Bible study when you're 18, 19, 17 years old, like, and also it's like what really tests faith, in my opinion, is like when something goes wrong, because like as a Christian, like you want everything to go right. And you're like, come on, God, like you're trying to make a deal, like, God, I'm doing this for you. Well, God's not a puppet. Like, we can't do 4 things right, and He'd give us this tomorrow, So it's like, who do you reach out in them times? And something that I've learned the other day was, my good friend Brenton sent me this, and I can't remember the exact timeline, but I believe like 15 to 18 years ago, the average male, adult, male in their 30s, let's just put it this way, had 5 close men that they could rely on and reach out. Today, the average has less than 1 close enough friend that like you can reach out, like, hey man, I'm struggling with this, because we all struggle with stuff. Like, I don't care if it's an exam
Nobody's
in college,
exempt.
right? And and like I say, like you look back and you're like, really, I was worried about that stupid exam. Like that's so minor, because now I'm worried about this, or So it's just it's a growing experience, and it's refreshing to see that, and like I always say this, I'm a spiritual person. Like I believe in God. Like I'm not anti-religion, but some people may take it that way. It's just like sometimes there's too many rules and regulations, but to me, I also, like I said, I've said it a million times, like I want my life, like I want when somebody reaches out, like, and I have bad days too. And there's days I had to go back to the team like, hey man, I kind of snapped on you on that. I had 17 other things going on in my mind. So, no, that's cool. And just it's refreshing to see that. And I believe, didn't you have like a medical spell while you were a state officer?
Yes. Okay. And so in January of my state officer year, it was funny. We had just gone to kind of a team dinner, and we had gotten back, and the boys were up watching the Purdue game, of course. And I was
sure they got beat. No.
Well, they never got to watch the ending of that game because of me, so it's sad for them. But I remember just not feeling right, and I was like, I'm just going to go to bed. And so I went in and laid down, and apparently, much of this I don't remember. This is just from my teammates recounting the story to me. I had gotten up out of bed and didn't really say a word, and the girls all kind of looked at me like, what's going on with her? She's just like, looked like I was sleepwalking.
Right.
And I went out, I said something about water, and then I went out, and the guys were all huddled around the TV, kind of looked over, noticed I was there, talked to me, but I never responded. And then all of a sudden they heard a thud, and I was on our kitchen floor, and they were like, I think something's wrong with her. And so it took me a couple minutes to come to, and then they all jumped into action within a few minutes. They had rushed me to the hospital. They told me that if there would have been a cop out, they would have most definitely gotten pulled over. We all crammed in, all 7 into one car, and they got me there, and one of my teammates' moms rushed and actually beat us to the hospital because she wanted to be there, because they knew my mom and dad were 3 hours away.
Right.
And that was one of the scariest experiences, because still I don't know why I fainted or passed out, and I actually had an event to go to the next morning. And I told my nurse, I was like, I got to bust out of here. Like, I have an event to go to. I got to go get an OD, and I got to get there. And she was just like, well, you can't leave. Like, not yet. And I was like, okay, well, get me in the shower. I'm going to blow dry and straighten my hair here in the sink right now because I got to go. And it was the craziest experience because, like I said, I didn't know what was going on. But my teammates sat there in the waiting room until 4 a.m, waiting to find out what had happened and being there for me and watching my teammates' parents come and be there. It was one of those experiences that I will never forget because that really showed me my teammates were more than just my coworkers at that point. And the way they had all jumped into action to make sure I was okay was truly something that I think it sent most of my family into tears hearing the story recounted back.
Well, and it's something that we try to. I mean, it's that culture of that state officer team, but it's even something that we're trying to make sure we have in our company, like a family culture where people like actually know that we love them and we care, and they're just not a widget. They're just not making a widget. There's a reason, that they're there. And it's, and for me, like when I see another team member, like go help another team member, like that's like, and like, I have nothing to do with it. Like that person has a generous heart. Like there's a reason why, but it's always fun when I see a community give back, or like one of them's like, hey boss, we should do this. And like Adam the other day, like he came and he was like, he had something that he wanted us to donate to. And I was like, hey Adam, next time come and say, hey boss, I think we should donate to this because of this is, it was a suicide prevention stuff for our local county. Absolutely. What do they need? Let's just do it. But it's fun to see it's a whole new meaning in life. And it's them officers, their parents, like, that you can count on them when there is a big decision to make of like, there's been times I've had to reach out to I've got a few people, I've got 3 people in mind that I know I can text right now and say, pray for me. I've got this big decision coming up or whatever, pray for this person. It's like, and it's refreshing to know like that, that. And what's really refreshing is them 3 people though, they're not real, like, when it comes to prayer, they're very bold and like, hey, Bob, are you doing this? Like, if the devil's attacking your marriage, are you praying with your wife right now to tell the devil to flee? Or, you know what I mean? Like, so it's not just like, oh, salty. It's like, hey, make sure you're doing this. I'm like, okay.
Sometimes the people who tell it to you straight
are
the best.
Yeah, and my buddy Brenton, like, when he's like, you know what, like, be thankful that you have that customer that's being the pain in the butt, or how are you changing your process, to change that. So did they ever figure out what caused you to faint or anything?
No, they never did. They think that it was probably just a fluke thing. I haven't passed out since, I guess, knock on wood, but I have been perfectly fine since then. And like I said, I don't remember much of it, but I know one of my teammates, the guys kind of just got up and carried me to the car.
Yep.
And then Seth was driving and he was just like, well, we didn't know what was going on, so I was just going to speed and get you there. And so looking back, I'm sure that they were probably a little crazy. Right. And I know that one of the nurses said it was a little odd when you have 7 18-year-olds coming in on a Friday night with one of you being carried in.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily look great.
And it had nothing to do with drugs or alcohol.
Exactly.
So, yes.
And so they were like, yeah, they probably thought we were a little weird just carrying in our friend saying, hey, something's wrong with her. Like, she just passed out. But it was truly like the experience of knowing that they were there and that they were willing to jump that quickly into action. They're truly more my brothers and sisters, absolutely, I think, than coworkers.
Oh, absolutely. Did, man, I totally lost my train of thought. Do you remember the car ride there?
No.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember. I really don't. I remember waking up, like, being in the hospital, and I remember kind of, while I was there, I was telling the nurses, like, I need to wash my hair in the sink. Like, I remember telling them I gotta go, but majority of it I don't remember. They ran, I think, just about every test. My mom joked that on her bill, she said, well, it looks like they ran every test but a prostate exam. And so they did everything from x-rays, MRIs, CAT scans, brain scan, everything. Never really found out, but lucky to say I haven't had any issues since then.
So we have a sales guy here that he's had a couple of procedures lately, and every time that he's high on drugs, mm-hmm, like not in a bad way, but like
the medications.
The medication, like he's like, I gotta get back to work, and like both times the nurses pulled his wife to the side, it's like he can't go to work today. Like he realized that, and it was hilarious. We do a lot of insurance work, mm-hmm, and we had fought this insurance company for this customer for like 4 months, and the guy texted my rep like literally like as he's going into the medication taking in effect, like, hey, we got our approval, we're ready to move forward. Well, what people that don't do this business don't understand is like you fought and you scratched and you clawed and you finally won that one. It's like, yeah, let's go get it signed up because now I can finally make money for doing my job, know. And it's funny because he was going to go sign the guy up higher than a kite from the medication. And then finally, like, his wife took him home and he called his wife called one of his buddies that work here and was like, hey, you need to talk some sense into Cody. Like, he cannot leave right now. And then he passed out, and then when he woke up, like his wife's like, you were talking about this, and he kind of come to. So yeah, that's funny, and it's just that like we got to get something done. Like, mm-hmm, that's just who we are. That's that drive that sometimes that yeah, you have to stay there and rest. So I take it you didn't get to that event?
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did. I was advised not to. Okay. But I was speaking at a Grit and Grace gala at Lucas Oil Estates, and so I was there representing as a state officer, and I'm a Grit and Grace member as well. And so I was like, I have to get to this gala. Like, I'm here, I'm talking, like, I gotta go, and I gotta go get an OD if everybody else is in like formal dresses and things like that. And I was like, so I have to look nice for this. And I was like, Mom, you gotta help me do something. Like, I gotta wash my hair. I have to shower. I gotta get there. And so I remember the nurse washed my hair in the sink and then blow dried it, but we didn't have time for it to dry completely. So I straightened my hair half wet, probably fried half of it off, and I was just ready to get there. And I showed up literally within a few minutes, just in time for the event.
So, did you like have a presentation to do and put a picture of you in the hospital 3 hours before that?
It was funny. My mom had texted some of the people and the women that were like leading the event, and was like, hey, I don't know if she's going to make it. She's in the hospital right now. And they're like, oh, don't worry. Like, it's totally fine. Like, take care of her. And I showed up and they were like, you were in the hospital? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, really? And I was like, yeah. Well, I didn't realize it. When they did my brain scan, I still had the sticker marks on my forehead and didn't think to cover it up with makeup. And she's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, why? And she's like, well, you still have the stickers all over you. It took me almost 2 or 3 times of like trying to scrub and wash to get those stickers off. I had them all up and down my arms, all over my stomach, everywhere. And I was like, well, this is just my sign of my scars, I guess you could say, being in the hospital and rushing to my event.
What is Grit and Grace?
Grit and Grace is an organization. It was started by Fanchen Stinger. She was a anchor for Fox 59 out of Indianapolis. And it's for girls that are in leadership within agriculture and Western sports. So it's mainly focused, a large portion of it is kind of Western sports. They have a really big alliance with the PBR, and so they travel and give scholarships at each of the PBR events. And so it was a super cool experience. I've been a part of it since 2021.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Nice. All right, as we wrap this up, is there any word, encouragement, anything else, you want to talk about?
Yeah, we mentioned like everybody goes through things that are difficult and things that are hard, and sometimes it's really hard to see the purpose in that. And this is kind of the big thing that I spoke about in one of my banquet speeches and then my retiring address, both as state officers. And I think every time I think of like that message, I think of Romans 8:28, all things work together for those that seek God in all things. And so I think that really is a testament that no matter kind of what's going on or what you're going through or the things that being thankful for the problems that you do have, that knowing that things will always work out for a bigger purpose is sometimes hard to remember, but a good reminder of that.
Yeah, and as we conclude here, like, I've said this before, like, and I text, I believe, all the state officers, or at least the ones I had their numbers, like, when you guys are finishing your year up, like, go crush the next, stage of your life, because you guys got so much momentum, and like, and it's just, it's refreshing to me to have, young adults like you guys to cheer on, the push to know that, hey, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, like, keep chomping. Like, I mean, I think back in college and like, I mean, I started working part-time and to go to college, and then it was on a hog farm, and then the manager convinced me to work full-time, and then I went to school at night. And I mean, I was taking a full load of class, full-time student at night, working. Like, I didn't really sleep. Like, I got home at midnight, 1 o'clock, and had to be in the hog barns by 6:30, and then I did that for a year, and my grades were freaking horrible. And it's ironic that my aunt and uncle just got here, and while we've been doing this podcast, and my aunt and uncle helped raise me. My mom left when I was real young, and my report card came, and it was pathetic that semester. And she chewed my freaking ass out. I was just like, and then now is when I was like, you know what? I'm going back full-time next year. Like, I will make it work on, like, financially. And I ended up getting a pay raise, and they let me change my work schedule, because they valued me working for them. And, so it was like, I remember this stupid class I had. It was it pre-calculus or calculus? And it was only one day a week, so it was like 3.5 hour class. And nobody should take pre-calculus 1 day a week. Like, it should be spread out like 2 or 3 days. And I worked my butt off, and I was struggling the whole time. And the instructor's like, if you take the test, I'll pass you. I took the freaking test, and then he flunked me. And it was just, there was, this was a smaller community college. My grade was based off of 2 things: the midterm and the final. That was it. There was no homework that was graded weekly.
In between. Yeah.
So, like, it was sink or swim. So I waited till the last semester to take that stupid class again, and I got the same freaking instructor. But this go around, he changed, and he gave us weekly quizzes. I went from failing it to an A+. Like, same class, same instructor, but just different format, So, like you said, like, you're all struggling with something. And now, like, I look back and I'm like, really? I stressed about a stupid college class now? I mean, now I've got a wife and 3 kids and a team, So, yeah, like, push through, like, let your mess be a message, kind of like the friends with the foundation of the AEDs. Like, that was a mess of theirs that they turned into a message or even a mission, like probably even one more step, like, take that into a mission, and just have a heart of generosity and gratitude. I have a saying, you can't outgive God. If, there's an opportunity, I joke and say, I swear 3 times a day I get a call. Hey, will you sponsor this? Will you sponsor that? But, and we just, like me and Emily have a passion for like pouring into youth, the teenagers. Like if it's the FFA, like the FFA calls and needs something, like I don't even ask. It's like, yeah, we're actually, Chris was out there. We're going to go do a few of the roofs out at the Indiana FFA Center either later this year or first of next year. So, like if you're watching this, like just go give back to something. Is it a foundation for ADs? Is it a foundation for FFA? Or, like that's one thing that I love about the team that we built here. We've got Adam. He's super involved in the church, helps with the youth group. One of our guys, he coaches, two of our guys coaches youth sports, and like just that, like the pour into the kids. You just never know what kind of positive impact, like if it's coaching a team. The crazy thing is one of the state officers this year is Kelby Roberts, and her dad coached me in livestock judging when I was in FFA. And God, I can't believe he still likes me. We were such a jerk to him, it's because we were just punk teenage kids. So, it's so cool. Like we were at the FFA Foundation Gala or whatever that was a month or so ago. And like it was so cool to see like full circle that it's like Ryan probably wanted to kick my butt 18 years ago. I actually remember we had state livestock judging, and he called me. He's like, "Get to bed early tonight, kid." And I still remember that phone call, and that's literally been 18 years ago now. So, but no, like we appreciate your time. Know that me and Emily's always praying for you. We're rooting for you. Like if you ever need encouragement. I probably need it too, so just send a text. But know that our team, my kids, that we love you and we're cheering for you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys listening into this episode of the Whole Roofing and Remodeling podcast. And Adam's going to put a link to this for the AED Foundation that she was talking about. And if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, that'd be perfect. Thank you.